Let's just give it a shot.
Well, I'll do the classic. Is it recorded?
I don't know.
How long are we gonna keep going for?
As long as we have to.
Okay.
I hope our few friends give up on trying to save him.
Oh,
I
was
we
singing-
come out with a fail-safe plot to piss off the dumb few that forgave us.
I hope the fences we mended fall down beneath their own weight.
And I hope that we forgot the lyrics.
No,
I
I hope we
listened-
hit on past the last exit.
I hope it's already too late.
Literally listened to the song yesterday.
I used to just stand in Boom Shaka and just repeat those lyrics like manically to myself, because let's face it, that's kind of where I was at the time.
There was a point at, like, when I was working at Outback, I would just wander around, like, in the back, like, going to get ice or going to the dry storage, and I'm just, like, yelling out Mountain Goats lyrics.
Yeah.
Good times.
Good times. Mentally stable times.
Not a toxic work environment time.
Welcome everyone to the second episode of Read Weens. It's been 2 months instead of 1 because we're funny like that.
Yeah.
And pandemic and
2 books.
Joe got 2 big ass implants.
We're literally sitting on my ass right now.
Couch is gone, ass is in.
Yeah, no, this is all, like, I just shoved the fat in to make it my ass. That was words.
It's warm.
We're back to talk about an actual book instead of whatever the fuck we talked about last time.
What the fuck did we want to talk about last time?
His favorite series, Bleach.
Lysol?
My favorite series, Death Note.
Do you not like Bleach anymore?
Clorox?
I love Bleach.
Oh,
We finished the anime. I need to finish the manga.
Yeah,
Pierre's ahead of me.
Pierre's beating you in the manga.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Pierre was like, I don't want to read actual books. I need to read the comic manga.
The comic manga.
As
And
he says it.
I haven't bought any books, but I bought The Death of Superman. I bought The Rise of Kylo Ren, which I've already read, and I bought The Long Halloween because I liked Hush and I wanted more things that feel like Hush, and I was recommended The Long Halloween. Plus, it has a 2-part movie coming out this year, I believe.
Epic.
Epic!
Epic.
Wowie, wowie! Oh, so epic! Wow! Whoa!
Oh, we have... I'm just doing this because my hands are cold.
You want just put him in Thomas's shirt. His milkers will warm you up.
Yeah.
Oh, so anybody read anything new?
Just those books.
Just his book. Thomas has read something new.
I read The Death of Superman.
Whoa.
All 5 parts, or just
just what you got there.
How was it in comparison to the movie?
It's good. It's like I said, because I've read it before. They basically just kind of took the movie takes the core of what happens in the book and it adds more to it. Like, they don't really take away from it, but it's like none of the Justice League, like, we don't see like Batman or Green Lantern or any of them try to fight Doomsday. It's all like Buster Gold and Blue Beetle and stuff like that.
They brought out the S team instead of the A team,
and it's kind of nice. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of nice to like see the experience with some of these other heroes, but it makes me wonder. It's just like, well, why didn't Batman show up? Especially since they all show up for the funeral.
Because Batman's just funny like that. He's too busy smoking the Batweed.
Batman was fucking Catwoman.
He's just chilling in the Batcave looking at the big penny, and he's just like, man, it's been a good...
That's a nice penny.
It's a nice
I bet that penny was more expensive to make than it actually cost.
Whoa! Whoa! Econ 101, huh?
But I haven't really read much outside of the reading for this episode.
Anybody started reading what we're reading for next episode yet?
I haven't. Actually, I think I may have read like the first couple paragraphs.
I don't. I know it's like a web serial, but I don't even quite know what it is, honestly.
I wonder if anyone can guess what it is after what Thomas just said.
Rhymes with gnome ruck. Maybe.
Potentially, it could be.
We should read Homestuck.
The day you decide that we're reading Homestuck is the day that I kill myself.
I just remember seeing the memes in like 2012, 13, whenever like
Tina Taya loves Homestuck.
I've never read it. I always, when I was like in middle school, I'm like, I want to get into this because it looks cool, but then I just could never figure it out. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then just...
The furthest interaction I had with Homestuck was a bunch of friends and I played like a one-shot D&D style campaign of it. And that was...
Was I in that?
No.
Because I also did.
No.
It was bad.
It was weird and I just went, oh, I don't care about this. I'm moving on with life. And I was... Yeah. Are you crying
Joe
about
doesn't love Homestuck. But yeah. So, no, we have not done a lot of reading, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to read a lot more. It's my goal for 2021. I'm going to read more.
You read some of that Star Wars book, didn't you say?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I'm still like 50 pages in because I had to finish these and I was busy. But yes, I need to finish that Star Wars book. Light of the Jedi, I believe. The first in the High Republic series, especially because the new ones are coming out pretty soon. I think there's one that comes out next month. So, and then I want to read that Batman book. I'm going to hopefully read Death of Superman and maybe Funeral for a Friend. Rise of Kylo Ren. And then I also want to get the Darth Maul comic because it was only like 4 issues as well. And I've heard the Kanan comic's really good, so I might pick that up as well.
Kanan comic?
Kanan.
Oh.
Kanan Jarrus. He's a Star Wars character. He's in Star Wars Rebels.
Is he the main character?
The main character is Ezra Bridger, but like his master, his trainer is Kanan.
Ezra
Ezra from Universal Harvester.
Whoa. That's a tie-in.
That's a tie-in. So is everything we do.
Yeah, everything is connected.
Everything is connected. That's why
everything
today's
is awesome.
sponsor is the Lego Movie. Seen in theaters 7 years ago.
Yeah. Wait, was the Lego movie 7 years ago?
Was it? I thought it was 2014.
I think it might have been like my sophomore or junior year.
I think.
So like
It was 2014.
What the? Okay.
So it'll hit 7 this year.
That's too low.
Everything's not awesome.
Well, actually,
awesome.
Life is aging us extremely fast.
well, actually, Screen Weens is in a DC era, so we're actually sponsored by the Lego Batman movie.
Ooh. Which one?
The one with Will Arnett. I don't know. Did they
The
make
theatrical? There's about like
I know
Lego
there's, like,
movies
the-
come out a
yeah.
lot, like, but they're usually like made for TV, like hour 10-minute thing.
I've looked at some of the ones on HBO Max, and I'm like, I'll get to these one day, but I'm not ready for them.
There's still DC movies I still have to like regular animated superhero movies that I still need to watch. Like I still need to watch Vixen and stuff, so I'm just like, I'll wait.
What's Vixen?
She's a superhero that uses the spirits of like animals to. She's a furry.
Oh, okay. So
DC
Pierre,
superhero.
Pierre would like them.
Probably. Pierre probably knows who Vixen is. I didn't, but I think the Flash is in that movie from the screenshots I've seen.
Sounds like you're a fake fan then.
I never said I was a fan of Vixen. What? Or do you just mean of superheroes?
Superheroes.
You have to know every superhero
Yeah.
if you want to hold that title.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
That's true. Oh, fuck. Oh,
Fucking outed.
God damn
Outed.
it. You sons of bitches. We should get a shelf right here and put... I was going to say we should put everything we've read, but I'm like, wait. Too much bleach, and then the thing we're watching doesn't have a physical copy.
Yep.
But that is a decent idea. That'd be...
We can like,
And then we can like have it like it'll be a joke where it falls on Joe every episode,
And I die.
and he like gets a concussion every time.
And then the next episode I come back, I'm just like in bandages, still recovering from my wounds, and then like it drops on me again. And so like next episode is like me recorded in a hospital bed.
But you halfway through, I just throw a bunch of books on your head.
In the end, you're like, "Hey Joe, I got you a get well present." And it's the shelf, and you just drop it on my head, and then I just die.
This is a brilliant idea that I must do.
We're gods of comedy.
We're gods of comedy. You ever seen Jack and Jill? I wrote that shit.
You ever seen Jack and Jill?
Dunkachino was you?
Dunkachino was me.
I directed that movie.
Yo.
I directed Dunkachino.
Just the Dunkachino
Dunkachino segment.
Have you seen Jack and Jill?
No.
We should do a Screen Weens where Joe gets on where we watch Jack and Jill.
Just that.
5 times.
It's like, why not just like do an Adam Sandler deep dive? Oh no.
I mean, we can do 2 Adam Sandler deep dives. One with like really good Adam Sandler movies and one that's really bad.
There are no bad Adam Sandler movies.
I'm down for the one that's really good.
Or just half really good. We'll do like Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems, and the other ones we'll do like Jack and Jill.
And Click.
Click is not bad.
Click's like
It's
in
like
the middle.
fun. Click has some ideas. I don't know if they're good or bad, but it has ideas.
It has something to say, therefore it is art.
Well, so does Jack and Jill. It says Dunkachino.
It doesn't have to be intelligent, but it can say something.
It's funny to laugh when a little kid punches Adam Sandler's twin in the face. That's one of the things I remember from that movie.
Adam Sandler cloned himself for that movie.
He did. No,
That's just...
It wasn't technical. It wasn't.
That's
like,
We watch Pixels. I haven't seen Pixels.
I haven't either. But
None of us. Have you seen
Keep
Pixels?
it that way.
Whoa!
I've
none of
seen
us-
like 0 Adam Sandler movies.
That's the movie where Kevin James was president.
Yeah, would have been better.
It might have been marginal.
So the correct timeline then.
It probably would have been. I don't know. I don't know what Kevin James is like as a person.
He likes segways.
Yeah.
I just assume
You
he's
say
full-blooded.
segways or sideways?
Segways.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of segways, welcome to Wolf and White Van. Whoa!
Are we just diving right in?
Sure.
I guess so.
Can I
We're talking about it for 13
Can
minutes.
I talk about my favorite quote from the book?
Sure.
Yeah.
I was literally in stitches when I read this. I was dying of laughter.
Was it supposed to be funny?
So
I hope so.
Probably. John Darnielle knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So it's like the part where he's talking about the wolf in the white van.
Oh, yeah,
And he's
yeah.
like, maybe whoever's kept him wears a mechanic's jumpsuit and some sunglasses. And hasn't he fed the great wolf for weeks, cruising the streets of the city at night? And the wolf's crazy with hunger now. He can't even think. Maybe he's not locked up in the back at all. He could be.
He's driving.
Yeah,
the car.
that's the part because it's the build up to that. Maybe he's riding. Maybe he's in the passenger seat. Or maybe he's driving. And it's like got the fucking funny text for driving. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
So the entire time that I was reading that segment, because the fucking Pierre is in my life, I was just picturing fucking B-Stars, man, in the driver's seat. I'm just like, he's just driving. Also, question, London. The copy you gave me, was that the copy that you initially had and read through?
No, the one I read was the one I had.
Okay, because...
Are there like annotations in
Yeah,
it?
there were annotations in it, and there were a bunch of sticky notes in my copy.
Oh, no.
I saw that it was a used
Did
copy.
it help you?
Not really.
Did you read them?
Yes. I'm just like...
It's like the Half-Blood
okay.
Prince.
Yeah,
You have to
kind of.
find... It's kind of like Universal Harvester.
It's kind
but
of
in
like...
book form.
Yeah, kind of.
Annotations in books.
Yeah.
That's like the exact same thing, actually.
Yeah, basically. So, we should probably go over what Wolf and White Van was about. For the audience and mainly for me.
So it basically...
What does Joe think Wolf and White Van's about?
I mean, it's about...
Because there's a wolf and he drives a car.
That was the... I don't know why
That
it
was
took
the
200...
central thesis.
I don't know why it took 200 pages to explain about a wolf driving a white van. But I mean, I got that it was about.
There's that huge segment where he couldn't find his keys and he was kind of looking for them.
Yeah. No, I thought it was about just someone very depressed using art and game design as a means to like try and escape reality because the main character is kind of living not a great life.
Yeah, but couldn't really escape it very long, could he? Before his little artistic world that he helped make got fucking just filled with drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because basically, this guy's in this accident. It's very vague. It's where, spoiler alert, the book ends revealing like the moment where he has this.
The whole narrative.
I'm going to call it an incident as opposed to an accident because I feel like that's slightly more appropriate.
It was largely called incident as well.
Yeah.
Where he, spoiler, but you're watching the podcast about it, so fuck you. He shoots himself in the head with like a rifle, and it doesn't.
I thought it was a shotgun.
It was some sort of.
Yeah, it was a gun.
Yeah, I think it may have been a rifle,
but he survives, and the whole narrative structure of the film is that's not a film. I talk about films too much. The whole narrative structure of the book. It's a book.
What's a book?
It's told. Each chapter starts earlier in his life. Mm-hmm. And so the very first chapter is like the end of his, not necessarily his life, but this like segment of his story where he's like he's pretty good. He's at peace. He's like hanging out. He's talking to someone and he's like chill. And the first couple chapters, he's pretty fine, but slowly it's just like going back through like all the chaos and turmoil of his life. And then it ends with him like as a teenager shooting himself in the head. Meanwhile, there are two other storytelling strands where he'll be recollecting things from his childhood or from his past as well. And then he's also writing pretty much a choose-your-own-adventure game that's played through the mail called The Trace Italian, along with like a dozen other games he also has. Mm-hmm. And that's the way he supplements his income outside of the government money he gets.
Yeah. And there's some things that happen, like there's a huge legal case that he has to deal with because two people who were playing the Trace Italian ended up... the way that the book described it, I couldn't quite figure out, but it seemed like they were trying to echo his instructions in real life since there wasn't much to do there, which ended up with them getting basically trapped somewhere, and the girl... Because it was like a boyfriend and a girlfriend who played together, and the girl ended up freezing to death, and the guy ended up barely surviving.
Yeah, they said he lost like most of his limbs, through frostbite. Like and the book, everything about the book tells you that like before that they weren't necessarily mentally stable, and they were doing the same thing. They were using this game as their only form of escapism. And they were pouring their entire soul into this game, and it got them murdered pretty much by nature. And then there's also another player that we learn about named...
Oh, was it, it's been a few days. Chris?
Chris.
Yeah, Chris Haynes.
I think so. Chris Haynes,
Yeah, it was Chris Haynes.
Yeah. And he was a player, and he got really, really into the game, and he told himself he had to stop, and he was like, this will be my last thing. I killed myself in the game, pretty much.
Yeah.
And, there's just a lot of pretty much everyone in the book that's a central character in any sense is using different forms of escapism to block out reality, pretty much. And we only really get a sense of why from, like, the main character. But there's also, like, the final chapter of the book, where it's like, yes, I'm very sad, I'm going to kill myself. It never really says why he's sad, which I really appreciate in books, because sometimes depression is just depression. You just want to die, even though your life's going good. He makes plans. He's like, this is going to be great. I'm going to look really cool. But he's like...
And it seems like he's a little more than sad. It seems like he's just all sorts of, like, kind of unstable. Yeah. There's also that point where he considers and comes very close to also
killing his parents.
Yeah.
I mentioned this to London, like kind of right after I read the book. But you were like, yeah, it'll click some part of the way through, and it never like clicked for me. I was able to follow it, although I didn't make the connection that, oh, we're watching his life in reverse, which is like kind of the point of it, but I was still like following along.
That was definitely the thing I said you would click with, but okay.
Like, I was just like following along with it, but I just like never clicked. I'm like, oh, I'm watching this in reverse.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell at first because he's like in present day, and then he's like reflecting on like, the hospital, and then it despite the fact that it's moving linearly. Yes, thank you. I could not.
Lemurely.
I want to move it. But despite the fact that it's moving backwards that way, it still has its moments where it'll like loop around or go forward or backward.
And
it can make it a little I don't want to say jarring, but just a little jumbled at certain points, especially if you're rusty at reading like me.
Like, yeah, no, I was talking with a coworker about the book. I'm like, I think I like reading, but I might be too dumb for books. But also, that might have just been this, because I really appreciated how, like, things flowed one way to another. Like, midway through, I'm like, this feels very, like, David Lynch-esque, where, like, it flows from one thing to the next. We're going through sequences that are only happening inside players' heads or people's heads, and then jumping to a turn in Trace Italian, and then jumping to like a past memory from Sean, the main character, to like present day, like usually within like a couple pages of each other. Like it wouldn't be common for like paragraphs that kind of end like awkwardly, feels like the wrong word, but not like where I would imagine a normal paragraph would end, and then it jumps to something completely different. And I appreciated that, but it definitely made it's an interesting book. I can say I don't not like it. I enjoyed my time with it.
I will say that the book is a challenging read, especially for people that are like not
readers
for books. And like, I think, this was my second read of it, and the last time I read this, I was still like very much into reading. It was one of the last books I read though, that like before I started getting back into reading. So I totally understand, but I knew what was coming, so it was easier to digest the books. And like you said, everything's, what are you doing putting the phone next to it? What the
fuck is wrong with you? Holy shit.
The structuring of each paragraph is very like stream of consciousness. You are constantly a companion in the main character's own mind. And it can be hard to fathom that, because you have your own way of reading, you have your own expectations for where a book's gonna go, and like Universal Harvester is a much more like straightforward story. It has a lot of like strange themes, and like there are strange bits.
It does kind of get into the weeds there towards the end a little bit, I'd say.
But it's Wolf and White Van fucking dives into that right from the beginning,
which is something that John Darnielle is really good. He's really good at articulating stories in conventional and non-conventional ways. I definitely say that. I mean, it took me a while to get some of his music just reading through, where I'm just like, okay, I like this. And then, like, oh, it's about this, that, or the other. I'm like, okay, no, I get it. So I definitely see, like, Wolf and White Van being really strong on a reread, especially, we'll be reading more, so I will hopefully be a better reader, and hopefully I can maintain some semblance of reading, because I did mean it. Like, I definitely have enjoyed reading again, because I don't think I've read a book in close to 10 years, maybe? No.
What about high school?
I didn't read much of
Did you just do Spark Notes?
Yeah.
Okay. I tried to keep up reading in high school.
No, 10 years is wrong. Like, maybe, 6, 7 years.
And
7,
it's
8
like,
years, maybe.
There was never the expectation to read in my family. Like, my dad, I think he's read one book in his adult life. I think it was like it was a big, thick book. It was like 600 pages. But that was like, he like just didn't read. My mom always read, but like, after I turned like 12, there was never like an expectation really. And I like got good grades, and I cheated on all my English work. And I read, but it was always just for me. There was never an expectation. So like, I just kind of dipped off of that. And a lot of books just didn't, I didn't find engaging anymore. It's probably because I read shit like Wolf and White Van and like Waiting for Godot, which is like an absurdist play that's just like, I don't like, a lot of natural structures now bore me, so I'm just like, oh.
I feel like a lot of my reading was definitely like product of like the people I was around, because I was very much like I read a lot of young adult novels. You know, that was my jam, and like weirdly enough, like books were always around in my family. Like my dad was always reading, my mom was always reading. Like the joke was that my dad could probably read through Lord of the Rings within like a full week. Like, they were just always reading. I mean, my sister was a writer. I don't know how much she's writing now, but she read a lot as well. Same with my grandma.
Writer? Always a writer.
Yeah. But I don't know, reading was just never something that I often sought after. So this has been an interesting introduction to it. I don't know. I very much equated it to, like, right when I was, like, first starting to, like, get more into film and movies, or like actually finishing Universal Harvester, and I was thinking about all this reminded me of when we saw What Comes at Night, or It Comes at Night, where like you and Hinata, we all walked out of the theater, you and Hinata were like, that movie was great, and I went, I don't get it.
But then we stayed in the parking lot for like 3 hours just talking about a film.
Yeah.
That was amazing, because that was before I was really into film, and it was just so amazing to have like a long-winded discussion on like the themes of a film, and like I don't know if that movie would hold up on rewatch. I'm sure I would enjoy it, but
I still haven't seen it.
But like, that movie did a lot for me just to become who I am now. Like when, and I think you too. Like, we see movies now and we really like understand a lot of the inner workings.
And it very much felt like kind of that moment again. Yeah. Where it's just like, this is something weird off the beaten path that I'm not traditionally used to. I mean, like, even though I didn't read books, but I read a lot of manga throughout like high school and like after high school, but that's got pictures associated with it, and that helps. It's completely different.
Yeah, it doesn't rely on any imagery because they have it.
Yeah, it's a completely different means of intaking a form of art. Yeah. And it's just kind of relearning that, rediscovering that, trying to understand what makes it tick.
Speaking of tick, let's look at the clock as it goes round and we take a quick break. See you in a second! What's up, kiddos? Welcome back to Read Weens, episode 2, where we're talking about Wolf and White Van still. I'm gonna finish this little talk off.
Where the fuck were we?
We were talking about how the narrative structure of Wolf and White Van can be challenging to those, especially those who have not read in a while.
Yeah,
Because, you know, the main thing, if it was just every chapter jumps back in his life, that'd be one thing.
Yeah.
But then it's constantly going, him recollecting my zipper's down! Him recollecting earlier in his life.
Future London, make sure you zoom in on that.
It was not in frame. You cannot see my pants.
Future London, if it was in frame, zoom in on it.
Slow down a little bit.
What? It's fine.
Oh, what? You giving it a little air?
Yeah, I'm giving it a little air. What? Okay, so we were talking about... because even when it's in individual scenes, the main character... What's the main character's name?
Sean Phillips.
Sean Phillips? Doesn't sound right.
Yeah, Sean Phillips.
Anyway, Sean.
Yeah, Sean Phillips.
Sean Phillips?
Yeah. It's Sean
Phillips?
Yeah. You read this book?
No, that's Sean Phillips. And then it's also him doing a Trace Italian stuff. So I get it. I understand. This is still probably my favorite book that I've read. I really like John Darnielle's use of languages in the film. I really like the narrative structure of... I said film again!
I was about to call you out on that
God!
film. Did it again.
I really like the structure of the book. I really like the use of language in the book.
Well, look, you learn what a book is.
Book novel.
Just do what I do and just add the place all narrative or story. That way, no matter what
I really
you're
like the
talking
narrative in this narrative.
Yeah, I like the way that the narrative handles the narrative here.
Yeah, when the character did the character things, man, I thought it was great. No, I agree. I sorry, continue.
No.
I completely just stole what you were saying.
And I really like the character of Sean. I think he's super relatable, which, it might be worrying for my mental health. But, and there's a lot of small moments of just, interactions with, humans and people around that is, super endearing. And I really, really like, especially on this was my second read, so I probably got a little more than you two just because now I've read it twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's just so many... There's a sense of... So me and Thomas were talking about, obviously the Wolf in White Van alludes to the fact that scene, they're talking about how rock music played in reverse has a completely different message.
Yeah.
The devil's speaking to you through it. And this book is the same way, because reading it as it is, it's structured very much a tragedy of this guy. He's pretty good. In the first chapter, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's ready to take life on, and it's slowly just him going through a bunch of turmoil and then eventually shooting himself in the head. While if you read it in reverse, or if you've read it before, you see it as somebody who went through a severe tragedy and goes through different turmoils but always rises up above it and ends up in a place where he's very much at peace, or at least more peace than he's known pretty much his entire life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I got a little more on my reread. And just in general, it's a book that I plan on rereading again in the future. And that I think that I'll get something new and different every time I do.
No. I definitely see that. It's... I do want to reread it at some point. I kind of want more time to just sit with it. But, yeah, no. Okay, I'm gonna continue on. He's doing it again. No, John Darnielle's language in this, it's the same as his music. It's really good at setting the place, putting you in the shoes of the character, even though, like you mentioned earlier, we're very much passengers along for the ride. It's pretty much told through the perspective of Sean, but we're always adjacent to Sean. We're never it always feels like we're looking at him more than we're looking through his eyes.
Yeah.
But no, overall, I enjoyed my time with it.
Yeah, I'd say overall I enjoyed this book. I had a really hard time getting into it for the first few chapters, just simply knocking the rust off reading and just kind of trying to get familiar with the story. I kind of have that with most things, whether I watch or read them. I have a hard time getting into stuff. But yeah, I did end up enjoying this one quite a decent amount. I will say there were periods of time where I think there are certain aspects of the story that just don't quite appeal to me, but I can see what people would like about them, the whole long descriptive points of the trace Italian. I'm this isn't the most engaging thing to me, but I get it. I get why someone would like this.
Yeah.
And those were some of the most engaging elements to me. Probably because I grew up reading all those Choose Your Own Adventure, and I wish that something like that had existed when I was a kid. They did, but I wish I had access to that.
No, and I think the setting just works well for it because they mentioned because of what it was early 90s, so it was kind of just on the cusp of consumer computers, and they touch on that email is going to be a thing.
Oh, yeah,
you don't have to use the mail anymore, and that was a weird signaling.
Yeah,
I took it in as a weird signaling of the times.
Yeah, he also talked about how internet games kind of launched and how his was just like it was such a treat whenever he would get new people, because it's just like, oh, what? They chose this over the games of the interwebs? What kind of person is this?
And rereading it, he talks a lot about how he's lost so much of his clientele because of internet games. And he doesn't even have any like ads out anymore. So when people do like write to him, he's just like, where the fuck did they get this? Like,
some old like
something from
magazine
Goodwill
ad
or
yeah. And it's just like, it's interesting. Maybe we should just look for a bunch of those like old Choose Your Adventure mail-in things and give them a shot. See.
Well, something that's interesting in both Wolf and White Van and Universal Harvester is they talk a lot about how like memories and like footprints are left in like everything we touch and everything.
It's like that Smashing Pumpkins song.
I'm smashing pumpkins tonight. I'm smashing pumpkins tonight.
Pumpkin pie.
No, it's the intro song to like Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, where they're like, dun dun, time is another all. You always ever leaving a piece of you or something like that. I don't fucking remember the words verbatim, but something like that. Anyway.
Today is gonna be the day.
It's gonna be the day.
Guys, that's the Beatles.
That was clearly the Beach
That's
Boys.
Ed Sheeran.
No, time and like how things like affect everything in past, present, and future was like you could very clearly see that through both books in very much different aspects and angles. You alright there, bud?
Yep.
Right,
You're
here.
moving the camera though.
Oh no, we're moving, you guys. Oh.
Okay. What would you say? Recommend? Highly recommend? Not recommend at all?
I think that if you can handle a kind of slow crawling character driven book that also gets into like some choose your own adventure, very descriptive apocalyptic wasteland kind of stuff, and honestly some depressing ass shit, go for it.
Yeah.
None of that sounds up your alley, you probably wouldn't like the book.
Yeah, no, if you want to read something that's very, what I can only imagine is like different in terms of structure and storytelling and just overall content, then yeah, no, I would definitely recommend. Although I'm still stuck on like you not liking the game parts, because I thought like even through my part I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Like Sean really spent a lot of time like fleshing out so much of this world.
I just don't know. I just didn't
No.
hook me. Maybe it will on a reread when I read it backwards.
Yeah. Well, then, London, I know you're going to say that you will never recommend this book to anyone.
I would highly recommend this book. Obviously, it's my favorite book, so like
Yeah.
the vote. But yeah, definitely check this out if you think you can handle it. If things that make you sad, you don't want to see, then maybe don't. But you believe.
I don't know, if you can handle depressing stuff, then it's a good time. All right. Universal Harvester time, baby.
So, can I have Wolf and White Van real quick? So, one thing that's pretty interesting about Wolf and White Van is it doesn't do it a lot, but it ends the book talking about... It gives the book itself like an ending. It's like, hey, there are universes, there are moments where this wouldn't have happened, where there's a world where Sean just goes to bed and he lives a happy life and he marries and he has kids. And Universal Harvester starts like that.
Yeah.
Its very first chapter does that, and it does it quite frequently.
Yeah, where like these characters will do this and do that and go off to become this, but that's not what's happening.
That's not in this case. They're fucked here.
Yeah.
Lots of scenes that are like, McFlurry boy could have gone home from work that night. I couldn't remember the main character's name, I'm sorry.
Jeremy Holt.
Jeremy, that's what it is.
Jeremy.
There's a lot more characters in Universal Harvester than there is.
And technically, like, if you want to get technical, Jeremy's not the main character because he's not the narrator of the movie. Like I said it again. The book.
No. So Universal Harvester. Yeah, it's weird to place it, but I'll keep the focus on Jeremy. It's the story of this guy who works at a video rental shop in the late 90s. Pretty sleepy town, pretty sleepy business.
I think it's actually 2000.
Yeah.
Like it just
She's
okay.
that starring Amanda Bynes is in the movie.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Great movie.
Okay,
Yeah.
but still, around that time, and Jeremy's looking at the counter, and a couple of customers hand back some video rentals, and like, hey, there's some stuff on here that isn't the movie, and
particularly one named Stephanie, who kind of comes in and out of the story here and there.
Yeah, and she kind of drives Jeremy to like check out what's on the films, and it kind of leads into this weird rabbit hole where Jeremy's kind of trying to piece together the pieces, but again, he's not really the main character.
Welcome to the puzzle box.
Welcome to the puzzle box, baby.
Yeah, so basically the story changes perspective. So it's cut into 4 parts, and the 4 parts will... It's not like set like one part is one character. It'll kind of bounce around sometimes.
But at the very least, each part
has a big focus.
And it probably has like a time period that it's based
Yes,
on.
there's definitely...
Part 1, I'll say, is present day, which is the early 2000s. I know it's not present day in the full scope of the story.
2000s is the second part with Lisa?
Yeah, the second part is with like
Lisa.
Lisa and her like backstory, which is in the 60s?
Yes, 60s, 70s, yeah.
70s,
Yeah, I think it's the 70s, yeah.
Well, it goes into both, I think. But
Yeah.
I think Lisa was born 73, if I remember correctly. Or something like that. Or 68, something like that.
So then, that's what the big primary focus of part 3 is, or part 2 is. Then part 3 kind of bounces back to Jeremy in the modern, like, 2000s.
But that's about where the book really starts to get funkier with its pacing and with its scenes. Like, it'll bounce.
And then part 4 takes place in the future.
Yeah, it takes place way down the line.
Probably like 2015, 2012 at the very least.
Yeah, early to mid
2010s
later,
roughly.
Yeah,
approximately.
But we threw a bunch of character names. So in Jeremy's like mystery, he's very reluctant to look through what's going on, and he's kind of egged on by one of the customers who brought it to him, Stephanie, and his manager of
Sarah Jane.
His manager of the video rental place, Sarah Jane. And eventually Sarah Jane's like, hey, I think I know where this place is, and goes and looks it out and knocks on the door, and we meet Lisa, who is she wasn't the narrator of the book, was she? She was. Okay.
Which isn't revealed in the last paragraph.
Yeah.
I was like, the whole time,
I had to reread that last.
I got it. I'm like, oh, but it's like, and the book doesn't want you to know. She'll refer to herself in the third person.
Yeah, no, they're
but that's just also kind of the person she is.
Yeah, no, commonly, a lot of the chapters end with this weird outward perspective looking in. But that's largely what part 1 was about, was kind of the introduction of this mystery. And on the tapes, I guess we should go into it, is a lot of kind of found footage style
things that resemble snuff films. It's most of the time it's just just an empty barn or just a person standing there, but finding it's in black and white, it's they don't know where this is. It's horrifying, the idea of it. So even though we don't know what they are, we always will expect the worst.
Yeah.
And then there are ones where a person has a bag over their head or something.
Yeah. Or there's
someone's couple trying to run away or something.
Or someone's getting brutally beaten up. But it very much has the film of no one was ever supposed to find this. Where, something got out of hand somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And
go ahead.
You go.
Oh, I was just gonna say we eventually kind of find out what these like clips are later on.
Yeah, it's eventually revealed. Then that's largely where part 1 ends. Is them like meeting with Lisa.
Basically, part 1 ends because he's like, because they meet Lisa and he's like, I'm gonna quit this job.
Yep.
And
I have a better job lined up for me. I'm gonna leave it.
And on his way there, he runs into Ezra, who's another character we haven't mentioned other than the very beginning of this
Because
podcast.
Ezra's pretty sparsely throughout.
Yeah, he's just kind of like a local guy who lives out in the little... He's like a farmer's kid, and that's pretty much...
And he works at the video store as a closer sometimes.
And part 1 ends with basically Jeremy finding Ezra crashed his car into like the side of the road
with a bunch of the tapes with them.
We actually forgot to mention after Sarah met and found Lisa. She started distancing herself really hard from the video store. There were moments where Jeremy was like, it's just been me and Ezra running the show for like a week straight. We don't know where Sarah is, what she's doing, what she found, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what prompted Jeremy to go out and like find her. And he ends up at Lisa's house after running into and helping Ezra.
Yeah. And so part 2 then jumps back in time to the 70s, and we focus on Lisa's mother, Irene, who is described as basically just kind of this woman. She is kind of a woman.
She's
kind of this woman who kind of loves her home. She loves her hometown, and she's very attached to it. She grew up as like a churchgoer, and she meets this man, and he's like, hey, come move out of town with me, like a day's drive away, and we'll have some babies. And she's like, yeah! And then she goes and she's like, oh man, this actually is not what I want. And throughout like the pregnancy process, she comes to terms with, she's like, oh, I want to be home. And then they go back home, like to her home, and then he's like,
well, like a year later, they go back again.
Yeah, so she's clearly feels very uprooted and out of place. And then this like cult kind of...
We don't know it's a cult at that point.
It's
pretty obvious.
I knew it was a cult at that point.
Yeah.
But,
I'm like, what it is.
But, she gets inducted into a new church that is very shady. Shadier than your average church.
Mm-hmm.
So...
You're right.
What are you doing? What are you pointing at?
Who?
What?
What?
What are you doing?
Talking to our cameraman.
We don't have it. It's just us. It's just us in the room.
I'm not here.
I don't know who you're signing this off to. And why you keep fiddling with the camera.
Talking to our cameraman.
Anyway.
He's in my earpiece.
Okay.
What's the...
What's your guy in the ear telling you?
That you're gay.
Shit.
But yeah, she gets pretty much inducted into a cult, and one day she just leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Just disappears.
Just drops off the face of the earth.
And yeah, then it kind of gets into the pursuit of trying to find her afterwards, and kind of the mark and the impact that this had on Lisa and her father's life. And we get to know Lisa's father. He seems like
just a normal guy.
Just a dude who's trying to raise his daughter by himself.
Yeah.
Because even before she disappeared, she was barely home because of the church. Like she was becoming more distant with time. Obviously, it wasn't always that way. They describe her and Lisa having like a really good relationship. They described like games that they used to play that made Lisa really
Drop a dragon.
Drop a dragon.
What's the term I'm looking for? Mature at a young age. That's not the term I was trying to think of. Precocious. That's the term I was looking for. So she disappears, and
Dad goes a little crazy and just starts kind of living around the country trying to find her.
Yep. And that's when it gets... I don't know if I want to stick... Because then it jumps back to part 3, and there's some revelations made that take place in this time period that come from a later part, where basically we kind of find out the climax to the search process, which also feeds into the kind of like the whole story. So it's like, should I bring it up?
And also
here?
like part of like what was currently happening after the whole Ezra situation as well.
Yeah. So basically, I don't know, you want to take it from here, Lynn?
No, you're good.
Okay.
So we jump part 1. You should handle part 3. Go for it.
I talk about Wolf and White Van.
Fair enough.
So, part 3, we jump back to modern day. He just helped Ezra. He's meeting up with Sarah Jane at this Lisa's place, and then he's like, yeah, you're just kind of gone all the time. I
don't know what's going on.
And he goes back home and kind of like talks to his dad about it, and he talks about Ezra and the car crash, and something that happened to Jeremy's mom is she died in a car crash. So he was basically like, that kind of upset his dad, and triggered something. He's like, oh, okay, and then he kind of pulls out his old journal where he starts writing dark things in it again. Yep. And also his dad's also like kind of in this
newish relationship.
Yeah. He's going out with one of his, not his co-worker, but someone
like a client, his like a client or something. Yeah.
Co-worker adjacent.
Yeah. But
like a co-worker if they were like a cousin but not related by blood.
But yeah, basically that night he decides to go back out to what is her name?
Lisa Samples.
Lisa's house.
Lisa Samples, yep.
With Stephanie this time. And yeah,
they pull up and
Lisa is awake because they're expecting her.
What are you doing here? And then that's pretty much where part 3 ends.
Yeah, it jumps forward in time to like 12 months later or something. Where he's at his new job, and he's like basically like, I've kind of moved on with my life, but I kind of have these moments where I kind of just think about it if I'm quiet for too long.
Yeah, and in those flashbacks, we find out Lisa was the one who made the tapes, all of the tapes, and Sarah kind of got pulled into that. She got suckered into it.
Yeah.
And they like tie Jeremy up to a chair and they're like asking him questions and beating the shit out of him. And it's just not...
Do they beat the shit out of him?
I think they did say that they do hit him. Yeah.
Classic.
But I guess we learned that like in like the future.
Yeah, when more tapes are discovered.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically part 4 then picks up with entirely new set of characters.
Yeah.
Which have only been alluded to at this point. Like, earlier the narrator had been like, one day other people will find these, but those people come from a time... It was just
it was just like, I remember reading that going like, okay, sure.
Part 4 is just a completely different family.
Yeah.
These two, like an older couple, buys up the house as like a retirement home, and then their grown kids who are like 22 and like 19 or something
like that,
come to visit them, and they find the tapes, and they're like, what the fuck? They're like, let's watch a snuff film together.
Yeah. They're like, whoa, crazy films, let's watch them all. And then they're like, oh god, why did we do that?
And they come across this one that's unedited that has Jeremy's like interview there.
And he says his name in it, so the son like finds him, and the rest of the book is like just kind of tracking him down and him being like, here's her information, leave me alone, also leave her alone.
Yeah. And then the book then is like, but they kind of pursued her anyway, but then nothing comes of it, because then it's revealed Lisa has been narrating the whole time, and then the book ends.
OMG.
I very much enjoyed my time with this book. I think I read all of it within like, or not all of it, like half, a little more than half in like one sitting. I just kind of like tore through it.
Yeah,
it's definitely a lot. It's also like, because of its structure being more like, it's so much easier to digest.
Yeah, it's a lot more straightforward.
No, it was a lot. There was a lot more. It was very much linear, but there were still like moments where like things definitely like flowed from one thing to another, and then the whole like aspect. The whole aspect with like were sometimes like, to use a film analogy, like the camera just like pulls out. And we're like, oh, we are not experiencing these things through these characters. We're experiencing this thing through Lisa in her recounting the story.
Yeah, in general, there's a lot of moments in the book that's like revealing the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, no, and like there was a lot of that. I'm just like, why why? Why would you just like, yes, this is not going to. What you think is going to happen is going to happen. Not these other things. I'm just like, what? Why?
I think that's like a big problem with like puzzle box stories in the first place, because it's like they're building mysteries upon mysteries, and then they usually just kind of end up being kind of short of expectations. And I can't tell if this book was trying to be a deconstruction of that, where it's like, oh yeah, you know.
I mean, in general, like it was just like one just generally large mystery. I didn't feel like there were many things like stacked up on each other.
I disagree, because it's like it starts with the tapes, and then it starts getting into the cult, and then it starts getting into like what the fuck is modern day Lisa Sample doing? Yeah. So it does have like the mysteries they build, but
in general, I feel like this book. I almost said movie again. This book is somewhat of a deconstruction of like the puzzle box narrative, but more it's using the puzzle box narrative as a disguise for the first two parts.
Definitely.
As a vehicle to explore both grief and trauma. And it doesn't want to answer some of those questions, like why the fuck is Lisa Sample doing that? We don't really know, but we know that like she has severe trauma that she's trying to like work through, and she's trying to find her mother like the entire time, and somehow in her mind this is a way to do that. And a lot of it is Jeremy's journey of trying to move past his own trauma, but like a lot of the characters in this all have different bits of trauma, and a lot of them it is ignoring that. Like Jeremy and his father both mostly just ignore that. When Jeremy's father does bring it up, Jeremy like sweeps it away. Even Ezra.
At the end, he's working at like a grocery store and just
got a
scar on his arm,
and he's just mostly ignoring it. And he's just like, I'm just a farmer's kid.
Yeah.
That was like really sad to me. I don't like. I was just like, oh, Ezra. I don't know why.
They even bring up the fact it's like he went away and went to school, and they're just like, yeah, but everyone knew he was coming.
Yeah, because there's, and I think both me and Joe, and probably you to an extent as well, like the pull of the small town, is really hard to get away from, because you don't feel like you have
super hard.
You don't feel like you have any experience outside of those small towns, and you don't have a support system outside of those small towns. So it's extremely hard to, like, when I moved up here, I was just like, I don't know anyone. I'm living with, like, one family. Like, it was extremely hard to, like, get out and stay out. And now I'm like, I've been out of there for, like, almost 4 years. Fuck you guys.
You know, like, and especially because the beginning of, like, pretty much the very beginning of the book starts off with, like, talking about, like, well, this is just kind of how, like, people have connected, like, oh, so-and-so went here? Oh, really? What are they doing now? Or I think they mentioned, like, this character, Dave, not a person, like, oh, Davey, oh, yeah, Dave goes by Dave now. Or Davey goes by Dave now.
Oh, yeah. Is that, like, at the family reunion part?
Where it's just like,
where's everybody?
Yeah.
And they do that a couple of times. I mean, it's just like people want to have these big, grandiose adventures, but they don't want to leave. So they live vicariously just through the stories of others. And I think that's one of the big themes of that, is living vicariously through others. Lisa Sample, somehow in her mind, she thinks, oh, these videos of just people gathering, that's living vicariously through all these people's lives. She talks about how, like, watching security footage of like 5 people just talking to each other is like somewhat hopeful to her because they all have lives, they all have places to go and stuff.
Oh yeah, I guess we forgot to mention. Eventually, they had some PIs track down the cult leader, and for a while, like Lisa on like repeat every night would just watch the security tapes of just them arresting Michael, who's the cult leader. But no, I agree with that. And like,
I thought they didn't arrest him. They got like 3 of them, but
okay, but they still got, but still kind of the same point where she was like living through that, and like Jeremy serves as like a weird like through line solution type deal to that because he was very apprehensive. He didn't want to do anything with the tapes. He just wanted to continue just working at the video store, just doing his thing,
and maybe tells his boss about it and moves on.
Yeah, and nothing
fell in his lap, and he just kind of eventually had to. He's like, I gotta try and do something.
And there is the pretty obvious like the book. I think in the acknowledgments at the end.
Yeah, no. John talks about
says,
like this is the
like,
love
it's
letter
about mothers in general, and like Jeremy lost his mother, and like Sarah Jane's only a little bit older than him, but obviously she's in a more powerful role than him. So there's
like that part where she's like, "Do you have a crush on me?" He's like, "I don't know, I think so," but it's pretty clear that he kind of views her as his kind of fill-in mother.
Definitely.
No, I'm pretty sure he says that to Stephanie.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Fuck, I'm sorry. There's too many
women.
Too many characters.
Too many women. We need to get rid of them. We need to.
If the name's not Jeremy, Steve,
or Judy Hopps.
Oh, our producer is telling us to stop shit-talking women. I'm afraid we can't do that, producer.
Our producer is saying to kill all women?
Yeah, that's...
Oh, no!
Wait, hold on. You want us to chop off their hands now?
Oh, God!
Oh, no, he's emphasizing his hands now.
Okay, so, like, with the saw, right? That's... You want us to take off their foot now?
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
So obviously he wants to do what Sarah Jane wants him to because
ultimately
she's the closest thing he's like had to a mother in a while, and you know.
And also there's like that friendship thing, and also like Jeremy like kind of deep down knows like this is probably the right thing to do if there is something to do.
What else was there? I had something really epic to say.
Was it that you hate women?
Yeah, it was. No. I don't fucking know anymore.
Me neither.
The Universal Harvester still has like all the charm that I found in Wolf and White Van, where like things like it still has like the same like great descriptions and feelings and settings, and London has his thing. Say it before you forget it.
So, something that I thought was really cool is there's looking back on something. Lisa Sample, she's the narrator. She's the one writing the book. She's the one being like, "Hey, this is my book," and her constantly doing the. In another world or in another story, he would turn left here.
Yeah.
Or he would go home and, doing that. And that ties in really well to her continuously watching that security cam footage. Because she's like, in another world, I would see my mother here. Or in another world, my mother would be in there when they captured them or when they rescued them. So, it's really sad thinking about that.
It's a very, they're both like equally depressing, but in different ways. Yeah.
Well, while Wolf and White Van's very much a personal journey, trying to rebuild your life after personal trauma that you inflicted. Universal Harvester is a story about the horrors that come with grieving someone. And that's why I really like how the first 2 parts, or at least the first part, is pretty scary to me. It's legitimately at least maybe it's just because books in general, good horror books, can just get my mind going at 1,000,000 miles a second. What the fuck is gonna happen?
Yeah.
But I think there's some really good build-up with these tapes that make them seem so horrifying.
Yeah. And, like, for me, like, that build-up also, like, played into, like, when, like, Stephanie got, like, obsessively into the tapes. And I'm just like, there seems to be nothing. How were you able to, like, pull that much information? Like, are you in on something? Mm-hmm. Like, it felt like if it were a red herring, I caught it, but, like, I don't know, or if it was just there because that's just how Stephanie is, because we never really, like, learned much about her for, like, kind of the important role she played with, like, getting Jeremy to, like, convince Sarah to do this and kind of jump-starting everything. Don't you fucking dare do that. Don't think I didn't see that.
I don't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to continue to do nothing.
Uh-huh.
Oh, God!
Anyway.
Oh, how did I fall for that? God damn it.
Closing. I would also highly recommend Universal Harvester. I think I don't necessarily like it as much as Wolf and White Van, which I wasn't expecting to, but I really enjoyed it still. It's really thrilling. And it's got some really great characters, and it's still got some funky narrative later on.
It's got that good John Darnielle
and
spice.
It's definitely John Darnielle has honed his craft in writing, and it just makes me. I'm really hoping he writes another book after this. Yeah. But get on.
Doesn't he have a third book?
Well, he has a. Before these two, he wrote a nonfiction book about. Was it Metallica? Let me look. But yeah, you guys talk.
While looks that up.
Oh God, I got TikTok open.
You know, I'd say I highly recommend this. I definitely immediately got something more out of it than Wolf and White Van, but I think that'll probably change if I eventually reread Universal
Black Sabbath book.
But also that might have just been like I was in more of like a reading mood. I was a bit more accustomed to how John Darnielle wrote and structured these things. Like I knew like going into it, like, okay, there's probably going to be some like weird narrative style stuff if going from Wolf and White Van. I definitely agree with what you said. Like it definitely felt a lot more honed in, but also I think on a reread of Wolf and White Van, I'll appreciate the more chaotic nature of it. But no, overall really good. It very much kept me on like the edge of my seat. Like I was like, whenever I sat down to read it, I very much felt like I got.
Joe was just falling off the chairs constantly whenever he was reading.
Actually, when I was finishing like the last half of the book, I was at work and I was just constantly pacing around the warehouse, just like reading it. I don't know. I got very sucked into it. I really, really enjoyed it. Thomas. Okay.
Thomas did not like this one.
I like the first part.
Oh.
Just the first part?
Mostly the first part. I like what the story's going for, but I just was not a fan of the execution. I think I'm, like I said earlier, I'm really iffy on characters that or stories that introduce new characters partway through. Like, I can like it if I think it's well done, but once I've been established into a character and get like that momentum going, and then when it just keeps switching it up on me, it kind of ruins the pacing for me, and I have to like go back and like try to get reinvested again just to kind of have it switch back, and I'm just like, So that's one of my big gripes about it. And yeah, I don't know if I was a big fan of the whole reveal of like Lisa being the narrator the whole time. I was like, but yeah, I think that people will probably like this book if it sounds up their alley, but if we've been talking about it and it doesn't sound like your bowl of soup, don't drink it.
When I was reading, I kind of pictured Jeremy as like you.
Oh God.
Just like you work in the theaters again. Just like
Except, Jeremy was not as grumpy as you were.
No, I'm very cynical and
Yeah.
grumpy, so...
But I was very much like kind of picturing like, this kind of has Thomas energy.
A little bit. Before, when I was like a little kid, my dream job for like teenage
Working at
years was
Blockbuster.
working at a video store, but then all the video stores shut down, so I had to go to a movie theater instead.
Shall we make Screen Weens the video store?
Yeah.
Dude, I'd make a video store if I could like get a big enough city to have a decent pool of people coming.
We can have a gay porn section for Pierre.
True.
So anyway, well, we did it. Number 2, done.
Woo! Join us next month, where
We're reading arcs 1 to 5,
of the web novel series Worm,
which is about a worm named Ted.
Yeah, it's actually about how Ted Cruz came to be.
It's about superheroes or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Bryce, you better be watching that shit. I'm gonna send you this clip. You better be watching that shit.
Bryce, I'm gonna be very disappointed if you're not gonna watch it. But no, it was like,
Not the Bryce you know.
yeah, different Bryce,
I figured it.
a much cooler Bryce.
Oh,
What
good.
if the other Bryce is watching?
Well, who gives a shit? Who cares?
Got him.
Yeah. No.
God, there are ghosts coming out of the
Oh, no,
closet.
the producer's giving us the X again. He wants us to kill Bryce.
Oh my god, the producer's coming with an axe. Oh my god, run, get the fuck out!